I came home from my fishing trip to find my nephew's girlfriend sprawled across my leather recliner, feet up on my coffee table, scrolling through her phone like she owned the place. My nephew Marcus stood in the doorway with his arms crossed and said, "Uncle Rob, we need to talk. We're staying here now permanently." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just looked at them both and thought to myself, they've picked the wrong old man to mess with. But before I tell you what happened next, I'd appreciate if you'd subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I'm sharing this because sometimes the hardest lessons come from the people we trust most. Now, let me take you back to where this all started. My name is Robert Sullivan, though most folks around Vancouver still call me Sully from my days running the marina. I'm 67 now, retired, going on 5 years. My knees complain when the rain comes in off the Pacific, and my hands aren't as steady as they used to be, but my mind's sharp as ever. Sharper, maybe, because I've learned to notice things that younger people miss. I live in a 3-bedroom house in North Vancouver. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. Paid off 22 years ago. My late wife, Caroline, and I bought it back in '89 when you could still afford waterfront property on a working man's salary. She passed 6 years ago. Cancer in the house felt enormous after that. Too many rooms holding memories that echoed in the silence. Marcus is my sister Linda's boy. She died when he was 19. Sudden aneurysm, and his father had never been in the picture. I stepped up because that's what family does. I helped pay for his trade school, got him set up with contacts at the shipyard, let him crash in my spare room during his apprenticeship. He was a good kid back then. Quiet, respectful, grateful. Then he met Sienna. She appeared about 8 months ago, 26 years old. All Instagram poses and designer labels that didn't match her bank account. Marcus brought her to Sunday dinner, and I tried to be welcoming. Caroline always said I could be too quick to judge, so I gave her a chance. But I noticed things. The way she looked around my house, calculating. The way she touched everything like she was appraising it. The way she interrupted Marcus mid-sentence, and he'd just shrink back and let her talk over him. 3 months ago, Marcus called me. His apartment building was being renovated, something about asbestos abatement, and they needed a place to stay. Just 2 weeks, he promised. Maybe 3 at most. I said yes because he's family and the house had been too quiet for too long. Anyway, 2 weeks became a month. A month became 2. Every time I'd bring it up, for gently suggest maybe they start looking for a new place, Sienna would find an excuse. The rental market's impossible right now. Uncle Rob, we're saving for a down payment. It'll go faster if we're not paying rent. Marcus just needs one more certification and then we'll have so many more options. I let it slide. I told myself I was helping. I told myself Caroline would have done the same. That was my first mistake. The second mistake was going on that fishing trip. My buddy Dennis had been planning this trip to Hideaway for 2 years. 3 weeks of salmon fishing, camping under the stars, unplugging from everything. I almost canceled because something in my gut told me not to leave the house. But Dennis insisted and I thought maybe I was being paranoid. Marcus had a key. He knew the alarm code. He'd take care of the place. I left on a Tuesday morning in early September. The drive up the coast and the ferry crossing gave me time to clear my head. By the time we were anchored in our first spot, rod in hand with the mist rolling off the water, I felt lighter than I had in months. For 3 weeks, I had no cell service, just the ocean, the fish. For an old friend's talking about nothing important. It was exactly what I needed. When I got back home on a Thursday afternoon, I knew something was wrong. The second I pulled into my driveway, there was a different car parked where I usually put my truck. Some beat-up Honda with expired registration. The lawn hadn't been mowed. The garden Caroline had loved, the one I still tended every weekend, was overgrown and littered with cigarette butts. I walked up to my front door and found it unlocked. Not just unlocked, but standing slightly ajar. The smell hit me first. Stale beer, old takeout, something sweet and chemical I couldn't place. I stepped inside and my heart sank. The living room looked like a fraternity house. Pizza boxes stacked on the coffee table, empty beer cans everywhere, dirty dishes covering every surface. My bookshelf, the one I'd built by hand with Caroline, had been shoved into a corner to make room for a massive TV I'd never seen before. Someone had mounted it right over the fireplace, where Caroline's painting used to hang. I walked slowly through my own house like a stranger. The kitchen was worse. Dishes piled so high in the sink that some had tumbled onto the floor. The garbage was overflowing. Something in the fridge had gone bad enough that I could smell it from across the room. Then I heard voices upstairs. Louder, music playing. I climbed the stairs, each step making the old wood creak. The sound that had once been comforting now felt like a warning, signal in someone else's territory. My bedroom door was open. I stood in the doorway and took it all in. The bed Caroline and I had shared for 33 years was gone. In its place was a king-sized monstrosity with black leather padding on the headboard, clothes scattered across it like a tornado had hit a laundry basket. My dresser, the oak one her father had made, was pushed against the wall and buried under makeup, hair products, and shopping bags. The walls had been repainted from the soft blue Caroline loved to a harsh gray. Our wedding photo was gone. The small shelf where I kept her favorite books was gone. And there, lounging on the bed like she was posing for a magazine, was Sienna. She wore a silk robe that probably cost more than my monthly utilities, scrolling through her phone. When she looked up and saw me, she smiled. Not a guilty smile, not an apologetic smile, a smile that said she'd been expecting this. "Oh, Uncle Rob," she said, stretching like a cat. "You're back early. We weren't expecting you until tomorrow." I couldn't speak. My throat had gone tight. She sat up completely comfortable, completely at ease. "So, what do you think? We did a major upgrade in here. That old furniture was so dated. This is much better. Don't you think? Where's my bed?" The words came out quieter than I intended. She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, we donated that. And the dresser was just taking up space, so we put it in the garage. This room gets the best light and we need space for our stuff. You understand?" Before I could respond, Marcus appeared in the doorway behind me. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Hey, Uncle Rob," he said. "Good trip." I turned to look at him. "Really? Look at him." The nephew I'd helped raise. The boy who used to sit at my kitchen table doing homework while I made dinner. He stood there with his shoulders hunched, for hands in his pockets, looking at the floor. "Marcus," I said slowly. "What is this?" He shifted his weight. "Look, we've been talking in this arrangement. It's working really well for all of us. You've got this big house. You don't need all this space. We figured we could take this room since it's the master and you could use one of the smaller rooms. It makes more sense." "Makes more sense," I repeated. Sienna stood up now, walking over to stand beside Marcus. She put her hand on his arm, and I watched him lean into her touch like a puppet on strings. "We're doing you a favor. Really," she said. Her voice had that sweet coating people use when they're trying to sell you something you don't want. "This house is too big for you to maintain alone. We can help with upkeep expenses. It's better for everyone if we just stay permanently." The word hung in the air like smoke. Permanently. I looked at them both standing there in my bedroom, in my house, telling me how things were going to be. And something inside me went very cold and very quiet. "Get out," I said. Sienna laughed. "Uncle Rob, don't be dramatic," I said. "Get out." My voice hadn't gotten louder, but something in it made Marcus flinch. "We're not going anywhere," Sienna said, her smile hardening. "We've been living here for 2 months. We've established residency. You can't just kick us out. We have rights. She'd actually said it out loud. The thing she'd been planning all along. I looked at Marcus. "Is this what you want? To steal from your own family?" He still wouldn't look at me. "It's not stealing, Uncle Rob. We're just being practical." That's when I knew this wasn't confusion or poor judgment. This was calculated. They'd waited until I was gone, until I was unreachable to make their move. I turned and walked out of the room without another word. I could hear Sienna behind me saying something to Marcus, her voice low and pleased. I walked downstairs through the wreckage of my living room and out to my truck. My hands were shaking as I started the engine, not from fear, from rage, but also from something else. Clarity. They thought they'd cornered an old man. They thought I was too tired, too lonely, too grateful for their company to fight back. They had no idea what they'd just started. I drove to a motel on the highway, checked in, and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. The room smelled like bleach and old carpet. I could hear traffic outside and someone's TV through the thin walls. This is where they'd reduced me to, paying for a room while strangers slept in my house. But that grief, that anger, it was about to become fuel. I pulled out my phone and made 3 calls. The first was to my lawyer, Tom Mackenzie. We'd known each other for 40 years, since back when we were both young and stupid and thought we'd live forever. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Sully," he said finally, This is elder abuse, financial exploitation. We can pursue this criminally if you want. I want them out of my house, I said. Legally, completely? And I want them to understand what they've done. Give me 24 hours, Tom said. Don't go back there yet. Let me handle this right. The second call was to my friend James Chen, a retired RCMP officer who now worked as a private investigator. I needed to know exactly who Sienna was and what I was dealing with. I'll dig into her background, James said. Financial records, social media, prior addresses. If there's something there, I'll find it. The third call was to my daughter, Beth. She lived in Toronto with her family and we talked every Sunday. But this couldn't wait. Dad, she answered on the second ring, concern already in her voice. What's wrong? I told her everything, the whole story. When I finished, she was breathing hard. That absolute. She stopped herself. Dad, I'm booking a flight. I'll be there tomorrow. You don't need to do that, honey. Yes, I do. Mom would have been on the first plane, and so am I. Nobody does this to my father. After we hung up, I sat in that motel room as the sun went down and the neon sign outside flickered on. For the first time in 6 years, I wished Caroline was still here. Not because I needed her to fight this battle, but because she would have known exactly what to say to make the hurt a little less sharp. Instead, I pulled out a notebook and started writing every detail I could remember. Dates, conversations, things they'd said, the donated furniture, the repainted walls, Sienna's comment about residency rights, Marcus' refusal to meet my eyes. I was building something, not a wall, but a case, and by the time I was done, they'd understand that patience isn't weakness, it's strategy. The next morning, Tom called me at 7:30. I filed for an emergency eviction hearing. We've got a court date in 3 days. In the meantime, I'm sending someone to serve them with a notice to vacate and a restraining order preventing them from damaging or removing any more property. Can they fight it? I asked. They can try, but they're not on the lease. They're not paying rent, and they've destroyed property. Plus, if your PIA friend finds what I think he'll find, they won't want this going to court. By noon, James called. You're going to want to sit down for this. I was already sitting, but I gripped the phone tighter. Sienna Reeves, 26, originally from Surrey. She's got a history. 2 years ago, she moved in with an elderly man in Burnaby, claimed she was his caregiver. 6 months later, she'd convinced him to add her to his bank accounts. His daughter caught on and filed charges, but the old man refused to testify. Charges were dropped. My stomach turned. There's more, James continued. Before that, she lived with a widower in Richmond. Similar pattern. Moved in as a companion, started isolating him from his family, took control of his finances. That one ended when his son physically removed her from the house. No charges filed because the old man was too embarrassed. She's done this before, I said quietly. At least twice that I can confirm. And your nephew, Marcus, he's got debts, credit cards, personal loans totaling about $43,000. They're drowning. Sully, your house isn't just convenient. It's a lifeline. After I hung up, I sat very still. The anger had gone cold and sharp. This wasn't just about my house anymore. This was about stopping someone who'd made a career out of exploiting people's loneliness and trust. Beth arrived that evening. She walked into the motel room, took one look at me, and pulled me into a hug. We're fixing this, Dad. The next day, a process server showed up at my house at 8 in the morning. I wasn't there, but Beth and I parked down the street and watched. We saw him knock, saw Marcus answer the door, saw him hand over the papers. Even from a distance, I could see the color drain from Marcus's face. Sienna appeared behind him, grabbed the papers, read them. Then she looked up and down the street like she was searching for something. For me, probably. Good, Beth said quietly beside me. Let her panic. The hearing was set for Friday morning. Tom told me to dress conservatively, speak calmly, and let him handle the legal arguments. You're the victim here, he said. Act like it. Thursday night, James called with one more piece of information. Sienna's been posting on social media. Photos of your house, calling it her new place, talking about renovations she's planning. She's even got a Pinterest board for the kitchen remodel. I've screenshot everything. Send it all to Tom, I said. Friday morning, I put on the suit I'd worn to Caroline's funeral. It still fit barely. Beth straightened my tie and squeezed my hand. You've got this. The courtroom was small, utilitarian. Marcus and Sienna sat on the opposite side, with a lawyer they'd somehow scraped together money for. Sienna wore a conservative dress and had her hair pulled back, trying to look respectable. Marcus looked sick. Tom presented our case methodically, The timeline of their stay, the damage to property, the donated furniture, the unauthorized renovations. He showed the judge Sienna's social media posts, her Pinterest board of renovation plans, the photos she'd posted calling my house hers. Then he dropped the bomb. Your Honor, Miss Reeves has a documented history of targeting vulnerable seniors. We have evidence of at least 2 prior incidents where she moved into an elderly person's home and attempted to take control of their assets. Sienna's lawyer objected, but Tom had the documentation. Police reports, witness statements, everything James had dug up. The judge, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and nonsense eyes, looked at Sienna over her glasses. Miss Reeves, is this true? Sienna's mask cracked. Those were misunderstandings. I was trying to help. Answer the question. Did you move into 2 separate homes belonging to elderly men and attempt to gain control of their property? Silence. Miss Reeves, I never did anything illegal, she said finally. That's not what I asked. The whole thing took less than 90 minutes. The judge ruled in my favor. Marcus and Sienna had 72 hours to vacate the property. They were prohibited from removing or damaging anything else. If they failed to comply, the sheriff would remove them by force. As we stood to leave, I looked across at Marcus. He was crying silently, shoulders shaking. Sienna had her arms crossed, jaw clenched, glaring at me with pure hatred. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just tired. Outside the courthouse, Beth hugged me. It's over, Dad. Not yet, I said. That weekend. Beth and I went back to the house with a locksmith. We changed every lock, every window latch, the garage door code. Marcus and Sienna were there packing. They wouldn't look at us. I walked through each room cataloging what was broken, what was missing, what needed fixing. The list was long, but it was just stuff. Wood and paint and glass. It could all be repaired. In my bedroom, the one they'd claimed. I stood in the doorway and looked at the gray walls. Beth came up beside me. We'll repaint it, she said. Make it yours again. No, I said. I think I'll take the guest room. Fresh start. She looked at me, surprised, then nodded. Okay. On Sunday afternoon, Marcus came to the door one last time. He was alone. Sienna was waiting in their car, engine running. Uncle Rob, he said. His voice was horsero. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I looked at him. The nephew I'd raised, the boy I'd loved like a son. He looked smaller now, hollow. Sorry doesn't fix what you broke, I said quietly. I know. She made it seem like we were helping you, like you needed us. And then it got out of control, and I didn't know how to stop it. You knew exactly how to stop it, Marcus. You just didn't want to. He wiped his eyes. I'll pay you back for everything. The furniture, the repairs, all of it. You're $43,000 in debt, I said. Focus on fixing your own life first. He nodded, started to turn away, then stop. Aunt Caroline would be so disappointed in me. That was the truest thing he'd said. Yes, I agreed. She would be. After they drove away, Beth and I stood in the driveway watching the tail lights disappear around the corner. Do you think he'll be okay? She asked eventually once he gets away from her. And you? I looked up at the house, my house. It was damaged. Yes, violated, but it was still standing. I'll be fine, I said. I always am. Over the next month, I repaired everything. I repainted the master bedroom myself back to the soft blue Caroline had loved. I found our wedding photo in a box in the garage and rehung it. The furniture was gone, donated to God knows where, but Tom helped me file a claim against Sienna's few assets to recover some of the cost. James called me 6 weeks after the hearing. Thought you'd want to know. Marcus and Sienna split up. He moved back in with a buddy from the shipyard. She's already moved in with someone new. Another older guy. This time in Abbotsford. Did you warn him? I asked. Tried. He didn't want to hear it. Some people have to learn the hard way. I thought about calling Marcus, checking on him, but I didn't. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. Maybe someday, but not yet. Beth came to visit for Thanksgiving. We cooked dinner together in my kitchen, the one I'd scrubbed clean and reclaimed. As we sat at the table, just the two of us, she raised her glass. To Mom, she said, and to you, for not letting them win. To Caroline, I'd agreed. Who would have handled this a lot better than I did? I don't know about that, Beth said. I think you handled it perfectly. You didn't let anger make you do something stupid. You used the system. You protected yourself. That's exactly what she would have done. Later, after Beth had gone to bed in the guest room, I sat on the porch with a glass of whiskey. The night air was cold and clean, carrying the salt smell from the ocean. The house was quiet behind me, but it was a good quiet now. Mine again. I thought about Marcus, about the nephew I'd lost to someone else's greed and his own weakness. I thought about Sienna, already moving on to her next victim. I thought about all the people who underestimate old age, who see gray hair and assume weakness. They forget that we got old by surviving, by learning, by becoming harder to break with each passing year. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Uncle Rob, it's Marcus. I left Sienna. I'm starting over. I know you won't forgive me, but I wanted you to know I'm trying to be better. I'm sorry for everything. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, good. Keep trying. I didn't say I forgave him. I didn't invite him back into my life. But I left the door open just to crack, because that's what Caroline would have done. I finished my whiskey and went inside, locking the door behind me. The house settled around me, familiar creaks and sighs. In the morning, I'd have coffee by the window like always. I'd tend Caroline's garden. I'd live my life in the home I'd built, the home I'd fought for. They'd tried to take it from me. They'd failed. And in that failure, they taught me something valuable. You're never too old to stand your ground. Never too old to fight back. Never too old to remind the world that respect isn't given based on age. It's earned through strength.